Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of RE338, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Evolutionary Psychology and Technology Trees, written by Poseidon __. In this chapter, you'll learn how different species design their technology. What is a species-specific technology tree? A species-specific technology tree, SSTT, is a technology and its descendants that only one recorded species has achieved. SSTTs you'll encounter in this chapter include Ryloth, Dakes, humans, and Jagan. What is the Universal Technology Tree? The Universal Technology Tree, UTT, is the progression of technology required for all species to achieve reasonable interstellar travel. Part of this tree includes fire, agriculture, gunpowder or equivalent, calculus, general relativity, transistors, and FTL drives. How will I use SSTs and the UTT to engineer new technology? The UTT and STTs are everywhere in contemporary galactic engineering, from interspecies firms to custom-made orders. Being able to design an intuitive interface or space station layout for most species is made much easier with an understanding of the UST. And knowing common SSTTs helps accommodate for certain species with specific engineering needs. What role does psychology play in engineering? Knowing the general psychology of the galaxy species will aid you in comprehending how each species developed their technology. There are many differences even among widely similar technologies depending on which species it originated from, and knowing these differences can make the engineering process much less difficult. 5.1. The Universal Technology Tree. The tree which all sapient life has followed in order to achieve reasonable interstellar travel remains a topic of significant debate even today. However, some of the minute details and definitions are hotly contested amongst xenanthropologists. The general idea and its uses remain valuable. The UTT consists of the steps deemed absolutely necessary for a sapient civilization to advance. Reference 1. Many of these steps are taken for granted by many in the galaxy today, and yet life as we know it would not be possible without it. Explanation of Addendum 1. Advancement or stratagem along the UTT is not the definition of sapient life. The Jargon's homeworld system, J2843, is completely bereft of all radioactive isotopes in its crust. This has led to the stagnation of their civilization, as they are unable to develop nuclear technology. However, the United Systems of Orion still consider them to be sapient, and thus no race can claim any system near them for their own, as per the Jargon Stagnation Act of 2873. For example, how did you acquire this textbook? Whether you are reading a digital copy or a physical one, this book was published on a human colony world of Terra 3. If you happen to be in the system of D8926, then light produced by the local star when this book was published would not even have reached you yet. FTL technology is an integral part of our daily lives, and yet most take it for granted. Whether this be the communication that allows sapiens across the Orion Arm to communicate instantly, or the commercial flights made daily from one end of the Orion Arm to another, FTL technology is everywhere. While this may seem obvious, knowing that each species you deal with uses FTL technology helps a lot. You can always send an email or a video chat with a client or coworker anytime you want, without the worry that comes with waiting for an answer for weeks or even years. Another example of a step onto the UTT is gunpowder. While many look back with horror to the amount of destruction caused by gunpowder, it has been discovered in every species that has achieved FTL technology. The advent of gunpowder forces sapiens to centralize their governments, which facilitates increased trade and travel between the country and its vassal territory. The necessary step in civilization, while often resulting in a loss of life, paves the way for better medicine, metallurgy, and chemistry. This common path allows engineers to be able to discuss explosive propulsions, no matter the species. Once again, knowledge of the UTT helps you without you even realizing it. As you study the UTT more in depth, Chapter 23, you will discover more and more uses of the UTT, and memorizing the most important steps is something many engineers do simply by habit. However, not all technology is universal to all species. 5.2. Species-specific technology trees. Suppose you have just entered the system L6297, commonly known as Redania 5, on a business trip. Unless you yourself are a Rylothi, you probably expect the normal planetscape, able to see countless cities and megastructures sprawled across the surface. Instead, you are greeted with what seems like an uninhabited planet. This is because the Rylothi evolved from a subterranean dwelling species on their homeworld. As a result, they dislike building above ground. Of course, there are still signs of civilization. There are still farms, still harbors and ports, and still solar power plants. However, the actual residents of the Rylothi are located underground. As a result of this evolutionary quirk, the Rylothi have developed an extensive subterranean species-specific technology tree. They have the best ventilation and drilling apparatus in the entire Orion arm. When they first joined the USO, most of their technology was understandably behind that of older members. However, they had developed fluid dynamics models and surveyors that were at least on par with or better than even the humans who founded the USO. Now, how does understanding the Rylothi technology tree help you in the modern engineering galactic arm? Well, if you have to develop something which needs to move a lot of fluid very quickly, then working with the Rylothi could be very beneficial. Their intuitive sense of fluid dynamics, specifically gaseous fluids, and tunneling greatly speed up mining operations throughout the Orion arm. For another example, let us take a look at the human SSTT. The humans were the first species to achieve reasonable interstellar travel, even though most life throughout the galaxy started at roughly the same time. How did the humans win the race? The answer lies within their evolutionary psychology. Humans evolved from tree-dwelling primates on their homeworld into persistence hunters, chasing their prey until it collapsed of exhaustion. Furthermore, the humans lacked almost any sort of natural weapon, with no claws, teeth, horns, or tusks to defend themselves with. At first, it might seem like this would be a severe hindrance to the sapient species, but in reality, these two reasons catapulted the humans through the UTT and their own SSTT. First and foremost, persistence hunting. This hunting methodology is so rare in evolution that it has only been documented 236 times in the entire Orion arm, with Earth hosting 2 of those species. This hunting method requires incredible efficiency on the part of the hunter and endurance. This led humans to develop technology that made them and their activities more efficient and allowed them to work on projects for incredibly long periods of time. Although they are susceptible to boredom, Addendum 2, in addition to efficiency, human technology had to be incredibly durable to hold up while chasing prey over long distances. The first spears couldn't break after one throw, their knives had to be able to skin more than one animal, and their water containers had to resist leaks. Explanation of Addendum 2. For a more extensive list and explanation of the do's and don'ts when working with a human, see Chapter 36. This combination of efficiency and endurance led humanity to be the galactic leaders of efficiency, as well as a reputation for designing durable technology. When working with humans, one must not be surprised to find them still working the same shift many hours later, or doing many things at once. The human SSTT is filled with small shortcuts, loopholes, workarounds, and other processes never developed by other species. See caffeine. If you're going to be working with a human frequently, it is worth it to memorize their SSTT simply to not be surprised by some of their behavior. See human risk-taking. However, even if you will not be working with humans frequently, it is often a good idea when engineering anything to over-engineer it, just in case a human decides that they want to use it sometime down the road. The Dex are incredibly proficient in this regard. Like most sapiens, they evolved from predators. Unlike most sapiens, however, they were part of a symbiotic relationship with the apex predator of their ecosystem. They would hunt down parasitic larvae and the adult parasites that fed off the apex predator in exchange for shelter. Eventually, they would branch out from their ecological niche and develop their civilization, but they have continued their symbiotic relationship to the current day. Much like the Rylothi in humans, The unique evolutionary quirk endows the entire species with an incredible ability to empathize, as reading another species' mood was a key part of their evolution. Today, the Deeks SSTT is filled with technology tailored to help other species, as well as leading xenopsychology theories. Stop and think, what are the applications of the Deeks SSTT? How might this affect the way you design a Deeks starship? Hint: while the Deeks themselves are small in stature, why are their doorways so large? In addition to knowing the current SSTTs, engineers should endeavor to predict the advancement of current ones and the developments of future SSTTs. For example, although the Jargon have not yet achieved reasonable interstellar travel, it is the current consensus that one day they will. There are hundreds of engineering firms across the arm that are endeavoring to predict their SSTT, as the implications of it could help change the galaxy for the better. A civilization that reached the stars without access to unstable elements could develop a very unique SSTT indeed. Summary: knowing the UTT is vital in knowing what can be easily discussed between species and what would be difficult. Knowing SSTTs will help you in understanding the other species across the Orion Arm, allowing for better communication and development. End of chapter. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.